Before we journey into Alaska's frozen hell, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what scares you more, burning or freezing to death. Hit that like button if Arctic horror keeps you up at night. Subscribe for more real military encounters with things that shouldn't exist. Now, let's enter the cold. I am Marcus Sergeant Chen, United States Army Rangers, 75th Ranger Regiment. What I'm about to tell you will cost me everything. My career, my security clearance, and probably my freedom. But in December 2023, 10 people froze to death in the Alaska Range, and the official explanation, training accident, extreme weather conditions, tragic but natural deaths, is a lie concocted to hide something the Army doesn't want the world to know. The truth is that climate change is melting glaciers that have existed for 10,000 years, and these glaciers were prisons. We managed to open them. This happened in early December 2023. I was 31 years old. 9 years in the Army, 4 years with the Rangers. I'd done Arctic warfare training before. Norway, Greenland, northern Canada. I knew cold. I knew how to survive in temperatures that would kill an unprepared person in minutes. But I'd never encountered cold that was alive. Cold that hunted. Cold that moved with purpose and hunger. It started with climate data. November 2023 was the warmest November on record for Alaska's interior. The Denali Glaciers, ancient rivers of ice that had existed since the last ice age, were melting at unprecedented rates. Parks Service reported massive ice calving events, exposing rock faces that hadn't seen sunlight in millennia. The Army was concerned. Denali National Park is one of our primary Arctic training locations. If the glaciers were unstable, we needed to know before we sent units up there. So they sent us, 12 Rangers, to assess the situation and conduct cold weather operations training if conditions permitted. Our team assembled at Fort Richardson on December 5th. Lieutenant Sarah Webb was mission commander. Master Sergeant James Kowalski was her second. Then there was me, Sergeant First Class David Torres, Specialist Martinez, Kim, Foster, Anderson, Thompson, Walsh, and Corporals Jackson and Rivera, 12 Rangers. Standard Arctic deployment. Expected duration, 10 days. Anticipated casualties, 0. We flew into Denali on December 7th. The temperature was 38 degrees Fahrenheit. In early December, in Alaska, at an elevation of 7,000 feet. "This is wrong," Martinez said as we unloaded equipment. "It should be 20 below, minimum. This feels like spring." "Global warming," Kim replied. "The planet's dying and we get to watch it happen in real time." We established base camp at a site the Park Service had designated safe, a plateau about 2 miles from Ruth Glacier, one of the major ice formations we were supposed to assess. The view was spectacular. Denali's peak rose above us, 20,310 feet of snow-covered granite. Under different circumstances, it would have been beautiful. Before we could begin operations, an old man walked into our camp. He appeared out of nowhere. No vehicle, no hiking gear, just an elderly native Alaskan in traditional clothing, seemingly unbothered by the cold. "You're the soldiers going to the melting ice," he said. Not a question. Lieutenant Webb stepped forward. "Sir, this is a restricted military operation. I'm going to need you to leave the area." "I am Joseph Coldwater," the old man said. "Athabascan elder. My people have lived in the shadow of Denali for 10,000 years. We know things the white man has forgotten. With respect, sir, we're here on official business." "You're here because the ice is dying," Coldwater interrupted. "Because the earth is warming and the old prisons are breaking. You think you're assessing glacier stability, but you're really checking if the doors are still locked." Kowalski's hand moved toward his sidearm, not threatening, just instinctive. "What doors?" "The ones that hold the iceborne," Coldwater said quietly. "The ones who walked this land before the great cold came, before the glaciers formed and buried them. They weren't killed by the ice. They became it, adapted to it, learned to live in it. And when the old ones sealed them away, they used the cold itself as the prison." "You're talking about ancient people frozen in the glaciers," Torres said. "We know about that. Ice mummies, natural preservation. We're not here to disturb any archaeological sites." "They're not mummies," Coldwater replied, his eyes dark and serious. "They're not dead. They're sleeping. And when the ice melts, when the warmth returns to the world, they wake. They hunger. They remember." "Remember what?" I asked. "That they were here first. That this was their world before the cold, and that warm-blooded things." He looked at each of us. "Warm-blooded things can be made cold, can be made like them. Forever." Webb was losing patience. "Sir, I appreciate the cultural perspective, but we have a mission to conduct. If you don't leave voluntarily, I'll have to call Park Service to escort you out." Coldwater reached into his coat and pulled out something, a piece of carved bone, yellowed with age, tied to a cord. "Then take this. Firebone, we call it. From the time when the earth was hot and the iceborne fled to the high places, it holds heat that cannot be stolen. If they touch you, if they breathe on you, if they look at you with those frozen eyes, this is your only protection." He tried to hand it to Webb, but she shook her head. "We have modern equipment, thermal gear, survival suits rated to -60. We don't need ancient charms." "Your equipment protects you from normal cold," Coldwater said. "Not from their cold. Their cold goes beyond temperature. It's absence, void, death itself wearing winter's face." He placed the carved bone on a rock near our camp. "When your equipment fails, when your warm blood starts to freeze in your veins, when you feel their cold reaching into your chest, maybe then you'll wish you'd listened." He turned to leave, then paused. "One more thing. If you see them, if you encounter them, don't look into their eyes. Their gaze carries the cold of 10,000 years. Look into their eyes and you'll want to stop moving. Stop breathing. Become still like them. Become ice." Then he walked away, disappearing into the landscape like he'd never been there. "That was unsettling," Anderson said. "That was an old man trying to protect his sacred sites with scary stories," Webb replied. "We're professionals. We follow science, not superstition. Now let's get to work." But I picked up the carved bone pendant, tucked it into my jacket, just in case. After enough years seeing impossible things in war zones, you learn that sometimes the locals know what they're talking about. We began glacier assessment operations on December 8th. Ruth Glacier was 3 miles long and half a mile wide, a massive river of ice flowing down from Denali's higher elevations. But it was shrinking. Fast. The melt rate was visible, streams of water pouring off the ice, revealing rock and debris that had been frozen for millennia. "This is catastrophic," Foster said. He was our team's amateur climatologist, always reading about environmental science. "This glacier has lost maybe 30 feet of depth in the past year alone. At this rate, it'll be gone in 20 years. "And what's underneath?" Thompson asked. "Rock, debris, whatever the glacier was covering when it formed 10,000 years ago." We found the first body at 1500 hours, exposed in a section of newly melted ice near the glacier's edge. It wasn't recent, it was ancient, but it wasn't decomposed. It was frozen, perfectly preserved. The figure was human, or human-like. Male, maybe 6.5 feet tall, powerfully built. But there was something wrong about the proportions. The limbs were too long. The skull was slightly elongated, And the skin was blue-white, almost translucent, like looking through clouded ice. "This is a major archaeological find," Kim said, photographing the body from every angle. "Pre-contact Native American, maybe, or even older, Paleo-Indian from the Ice Age." Martinez knelt down to examine it more closely. Why isn't it decayed? Even frozen bodies deteriorate over thousands of years. "Maybe the conditions were perfect," Foster suggested. "Temperature, pressure, ice composition, like those mammoths they find in Siberia." But something bothered me. The body's position. It wasn't lying down like it had died and been covered by snow. It was standing, upright, frozen in mid-stride, like it had been walking and suddenly the world had turned to ice around it. "We need to report this," Webb said. "Archaeological finds like this need to be handled by specialists. We document, mark the location, and keep moving." We took our measurements and samples, marked the GPS coordinates, and continued our glacier assessment. But I kept thinking about that frozen figure, about Coldwater's warning, about the way its eyes, visible through the translucent ice of its face, seemed to be looking at something in the distance, looking at us. We found 3 more bodies throughout the day, all similar, tall, powerfully built, frozen in active poses, not lying down, not at rest, caught in motion. "It's like they were running from something," Rivera said. "Or toward something," Walsh added quietly. We returned to base camp at 1900 hours as darkness fell. The temperature had dropped, finally feeling like Alaska winter should feel. -5 Fahrenheit. Wind chill making it feel like -20. "Walsh, Jackson, you've got first watch," Kowalski ordered. "Perimeter patrol. 2-hour rotation. Rest of you, get warm, get fed, get sleep. Tomorrow we're going deeper into the glacier field." Walsh and Jackson geared up and headed out into the darkness. We settled into our tents, grateful for the warmth of our cold-weather sleeping bags and portable heaters. At 2100 hours, Walsh's voice came over the radio. Calm. Professional. "Base, this is Patrol 1. We have movement at our position. Approximately 100 meters northeast. Single figure. Requesting permission to investigate." "Patrol 1, is it an animal?" Webb asked. "Negative. Bipedal, human-sized. Walking toward our position. Could be a lost hiker. Approach with caution. Offer assistance." "Copy that." Silence for maybe 2 minutes. Then Jackson's voice, urgent. "Base, we've made contact. Subject is, Jesus Christ, it's not human. Repeat, subject is not human. It's..." The radio cut to static. Then screaming. Both Walsh and Jackson, screaming in terror and pain. The sound was horrible, not just fear, but agony, like they were being hurt in ways that shouldn't be possible. "All units, tactical gear now," Webb yelled. "Something's attacking our perimeter." We grabbed our weapons and scrambled out of the tents. In the distance, maybe 100 meters into the darkness, we could see lights, Walsh and Jackson's tactical flashlights waving erratically. "Move!" Kowalski ordered. We ran toward the lights. As we got closer, I could see the beams illuminating something in the snow. 2 figures on the ground, not moving. We reached them, and I immediately wished we hadn't. Walsh and Jackson were lying in the snow. But they weren't dead. Not yet. They were frozen, solid, their bodies coated in ice, their skin blue-white, their expressions locked in terror. But their eyes were moving, looking around, conscious, aware, trapped in their own frozen bodies. "What the hell did this?" Martinez demanded, scanning the darkness with his weapon. That's when I saw it. Them. Figures in the darkness barely visible against the snow. Tall, moving with smooth, gliding steps. Their bodies seemed to glow faintly blue-white. "Contact!" I yelled. "Multiple hostiles, 50 meters north." We raised our weapons, but the figures moved faster than anything human should move. One moment, they were 50 meters away. The next, they were right in front of us. Up close, they were horrifying. 7 feet tall, humanoid but wrong. Their bodies were translucent ice. You could see through their skin to the organs inside, all frozen solid but somehow still functioning. Their eyes were pools of frozen blue, no pupils, just endless cold. They moved in complete silence except for the sound of ice crystals forming in the air around them. One of them reached toward Foster. He tried to back away, but he wasn't fast enough. The creature's hand touched his shoulder. Foster screamed. Ice spread from the touch point, visible crystals forming on his skin, spreading across his chest, down his arms, up his neck. Within 10 seconds, he was completely frozen. Another living statue, eyes wide and terrified, trapped in ice. "Open fire!" Webb screamed. We unleashed hell. Dozens of rounds at point-blank range. The bullets hit the ice creatures, punching through their translucent bodies. But they didn't fall, didn't even slow down. The holes we made just filled back in with ice, regenerating like they were made of living water. Another creature touched Anderson. He froze mid-scream, his mouth open, his hand reaching for his radio. "Fall back!" Kowalski yelled. "Get to the vehicles!" We ran. Behind us, the ice creatures glided through the snow, moving faster than we could run, exhaling clouds of vapor so cold it burned our lungs just to breathe near it. Thompson tripped, went down hard. One of the creatures bent over him, its frozen blue eyes staring down. Thompson looked up into those eyes and stopped moving. Not frozen, just stopped. Like all the will to move, to fight, to live had been drained out of him. The creature touched his forehead. Thompson became ice. We made it to the vehicles, 2 heavy-duty trucks equipped for Arctic conditions. Torres was in the driver's seat, engine already running. "Get in!" The remaining 7 of us piled in. Torres hit the gas and we tore away from base camp, leaving behind Walsh, Jackson, Foster, Anderson, and Thompson. 5 Rangers, frozen solid, conscious but immobile, trapped in ice forever. "What were those things?" Kim gasped, her breath coming in panicked bursts. "The Iceborne," I said quietly. Coldwater warned us. We didn't listen. "They're not possible," Webb insisted. "Living ice? Prehistoric creatures? That's not—" "I don't care if they're possible," Martinez yelled. "They just froze 5 of our team. What the hell do we do?" Torres was driving fast on the narrow mountain road, trying to put distance between us and the creatures. But in the rearview mirror, I could see them, gliding through the snow behind us, keeping pace, hunting. "They're following us," I said. "How fast can they move?" Rivera asked. As if in answer, the temperature inside the truck started dropping, fast. Our breath turned to mist. Frost formed on the windows. "They're doing this," Foster had said earlier, before he'd been frozen. "They can manipulate temperature." The truck's engine sputtered, choked, died. We were still moving from momentum, but slowing down. "What's wrong?" Webb demanded. "Fuel lines frozen," Torres said, trying to restart the engine. "It shouldn't be possible. We have Arctic-grade diesel, but it's frozen solid." We rolled to a stop. In the darkness outside, the Iceborne glided closer. Their breath was visible, clouds of absolute zero vapor, so cold it made the air crystallize. "Out!" Kowalski ordered. We run. Head for the Park Service Station, 10 kilometers east. Move. We abandoned the trucks and ran into the Alaskan night. 7 Rangers fleeing from things that should have stayed buried in the ice, things that climate change had awakened, things that wanted to make us like them, cold, forever. Behind us, I heard the sound of ice crystals forming, the grinding of frost, and underneath it all something that might have been breathing, or might have been the wind, or might have been hunger, older than human civilization, finally waking after 10,000 years of sleep. We ran through the Alaskan wilderness in darkness, 7 Rangers fleeing from creatures that moved like ghosts through the snow. The temperature was dropping impossibly fast, -30, -40, numbers that should have been impossible for early December. But the iceborne brought their cold with them. Wherever they moved, winter followed. "How far to the Park Service station?" Rivera gasped, his breath crystallizing in the air. 8 kilometers, Torres replied. "Maybe 90 minutes at this pace." "We won't make it," Kim said. She was shivering despite our Arctic gear. "My core temperature is dropping. I can feel it. Something's wrong." She was right. We all felt it. Despite wearing survival suits rated to -60, despite thermal layers and chemical warmers, we were getting colder. The cold was bypassing our equipment, reaching through the insulation, touching our skin directly. "Coldwater warned us," I said, pulling out the carved bone pendant. "He said our equipment wouldn't protect us from their cold, because it's not normal cold." "Then what is it?" Martinez demanded. "Absence," Webb said quietly, remembering the elder's words. "Void. Death itself wearing winter's face." Behind us, the iceborne followed. We couldn't see them in the darkness, but we could hear the sound of their passage, the grinding of ice crystals, the whisper of absolute zero vapor, the silence of things that had no heartbeat, no breath, no life as we understood it. Kowalski checked his thermal scope. "I'm not getting any heat signatures. They're completely cold, colder than the environment. They're not just adapted to the cold, they are cold." "How do you fight something like that?" Jackson asked. "You don't," I replied. "You run, and you hope you run fast enough." But we weren't fast enough. Kim stumbled, exhaustion and hypothermia combining to rob her legs of strength. She went down hard in the snow. Martinez and I grabbed her arms, trying to pull her up. "Leave me," she gasped. "I'm slowing you down. Just go." "No Ranger left behind," Martinez said firmly. "On your feet, Kim. We're getting out of this together." We hauled her up and kept moving, but the delay had cost us. The iceborne were closer now, close enough that we could see the faint blue glow of their bodies against the snow, and then one of them appeared directly in front of us. It rose from the snow itself, as if it had been lying dormant and our body heat had awakened it. 7 feet of translucent ice, its frozen organs visible through its chest, its blue eyes fixed on us with ancient hunger. Torres raised his rifle and fired. The bullets punched through the creature's torso, creating holes that immediately began to refill with ice. It didn't even flinch. The iceborne raised one hand. The temperature around us dropped another 20 degrees in seconds. Frost formed on our gear. Ice crystals appeared in our hair, our eyebrows. "Run!" Webb screamed. We scattered. The creature reached toward Kim. She was closest, still weak, but Martinez shoved her aside and took the touch instead. His scream was cut short as his body flash froze. 1 second he was human. The next he was ice. Completely frozen, eyes wide, hand still outstretched, forever reaching for the teammate he'd saved. "Martinez!" Torres turned back toward him. "He's gone!" I grabbed Torres's arm. "Don't look in its eyes," Coldwater said, but Torres was already looking. The iceborne's frozen blue gaze locked onto his, and I watched Torres stop moving. Not frozen, just stopped. Like a machine powered down, His rifle lowered, his expression went blank, and he started walking toward the creature, toward death. "Torres, snap out of it!" Webb yelled. But he didn't respond. Couldn't respond. The creature's gaze had him. Some kind of hypothermic trance, maybe. The cold reaching into his brain, shutting down his will to resist. The iceborne touched Torres's forehead. He froze instantly, his face locked in that blank, transfixed expression. 7 Rangers had fled the camp. 5 remained. 7 lives turned to ice in less than 2 hours. We ran until our lungs burned and our legs gave out. Found shelter in a rock outcropping. A small cave, barely big enough for 5 people, but it was something. Protection on 3 sides, a defensible position. "We can't outrun them," Rivera said, gasping for breath. "They're faster than us, they don't get tired, and they can freeze us through our gear." "Then we need a different strategy," Kowalski said. He was checking his pack, taking inventory. "We need heat, fire, something to drive them back." "Will fire work?" Kim asked. She was shivering violently despite being inside the shelter. "They're living ice. Fire should melt them." "Or it might not affect them at all," Webb replied. "We don't know what they are. Prehistoric humans adapted to extreme cold? Some kind of unknown species? Supernatural entities? Does it matter?" I asked. "They're real. They kill. And we need to survive until dawn." We built a fire using emergency fuel tablets and whatever burnable material we could find. The warmth was incredible. The first real heat we'd felt since the iceborne had appeared. The flames pushed back the cold, created a small bubble of survivability in the frozen hell around us. "They're still out there," Rivera said, watching the darkness beyond the firelight. "I can feel them, watching, waiting." He was right. Just beyond the reach of our fire, I could see shapes, pale blue glows. The iceborne, standing motionless in a semicircle around our shelter. Not attacking, just watching, like they had all the time in the world. Because they did. "Why aren't they coming closer?" Kim asked. "The fire," Kowalski said. "They're staying out of range of the heat. They don't like it." "Or they don't need to rush," Webb added. "They can wait for us to run out of fuel. Wait for the fire to die. Wait for us to freeze." I pulled out Coldwater's bone pendant, holding it close to the flames. He called this fire bone, from the time when the earth was hot, before the Ice Age. "You actually believe that old man's mythology?" Rivera asked. "I believe 5 of our teammates are frozen statues right now," I replied. "I believe we're being hunted by things that shouldn't exist. So, yeah, maybe I'm willing to consider that ancient tribes might know something we don't." The pendant seemed to warm in my hand, not from the fire, but from within, like it held heat in some fundamental way that transcended normal thermodynamics. "We need to understand what they are," Webb said, "where they came from, how they survived 10,000 years frozen in ice. Coldwater said they walked this land before the glaciers, I recalled, before the Ice Age. They were here when the world was warm, then the climate changed, the great cold came, and instead of dying, they adapted, became part of the ice itself." "That's impossible," Kim said. "Evolution doesn't work that fast." "Maybe not evolution," I suggested. "Maybe desperation. Maybe, when the world changed and the Ice Age began, some humans found a way to survive by becoming cold themselves, surrendering their warmth, their humanity, trading life for existence. And now the ice is melting," Kowalski said quietly. "Climate change is undoing what the Ice Age did, releasing them, waking them up. And they're hungry," Webb added. 10,000 years of suspended existence. Now they wake up and the world is full of warm-blooded creatures. Prey. A sound from outside the cave made us all freeze. Not the grinding of ice this time. Something else. A voice. Human. Speaking in a language I didn't recognize, but the tone was clear. Calling to us. Beckoning. "Is that Martinez?" Kim asked. "I thought he was frozen." "He is frozen," I said. "That's not Martinez, that's them." Using his voice somehow. The voice called again. Now it sounded like Torres, then Walsh, then Jackson. The Iceborne were cycling through the voices of our fallen teammates, trying to lure us out. "Don't listen," Webb ordered. "Whatever they're saying, whatever they sound like, stay in the shelter. Stay by the fire." But the voices were so familiar, so human, and underneath them I could hear something else, a whisper, a suggestion. Not in English, not in any language, just a feeling, transmitted directly into my mind. "Come outside. It's not so cold. It's peaceful. Stop fighting. Stop running. Join us in the ice. Forever." I shook my head, trying to clear the thought. They're telepathic, or they're using the cold to affect our brains. I can feel them trying to make me want to go out there. "I feel it too," Kim admitted. Like a whisper saying it would be nice to just stop, to rest, to sleep in the cold and never wake up. "That's hypothermia talking," Kowalski said, though he didn't sound convinced. "Early stage confusion, desire to sleep. We need to keep our core temperatures up." We huddled closer to the fire, fighting the cold and the whispers. Outside, the Iceborne continued their vigil, patient, eternal, waiting for the inevitable moment when our fire died and we became vulnerable. Hours passed. We took turns keeping watch, making sure the fire didn't go out, but our fuel was limited. Maybe enough for 6 hours, and dawn was still 4 hours away. "We're not going to make it," Rivera said flatly. "Even if we survive until morning, we're 12 kilometers from the Park Service station, on foot, with those things hunting us. We're dead." "We need to find their weakness," Webb insisted. "Everything has a weakness. Fire seems to keep them at bay. What else?" I thought about Coldwater's warnings, his pendant, the carved bone that held ancient heat. He said this fire bone came from before the glaciers, from when the earth was hot. Maybe that's it. Maybe extreme heat, not just fire but volcanic heat, is what drove them into the ice in the first place. "Volcanic heat," Kim said, "in Alaska." "We're sitting on the ring of fire," I replied. "Volcanic activity all along this range. If we could reach a geothermal area, hot springs, volcanic vents, maybe that would protect us. Or maybe we're grasping at supernatural solutions when we need tactical ones," Kowalski argued. "We have weapons, explosives, training. We need to fight, not run to mythical hot springs." The argument was cut short by a new sound. Cracking, groaning. The sound of ice under pressure. "That's not coming from outside," Webb said. "That's coming from below us." The cave floor was ice. We'd built our fire on top of a glacier remnant, and the heat from the flames was melting through. "The floor's unstable," Rivera yelled. "We need to—" The ice shattered. We fell through into darkness, sliding down a subglacial tunnel, unable to stop, tumbling over smooth ice into the depths beneath the glacier. The fire was extinguished instantly. The cold became absolute. We slid for what felt like forever, finally coming to a stop in a massive underground chamber. Emergency lights from our tactical gear illuminated our surroundings. We were in a cavern. Enormous. The walls were solid ice, but not natural ice. This was carved, shaped, intentional. Geometric patterns covered every surface, designs that were clearly made by intelligence, not nature. "This is a structure," Webb whispered. "They built this. The Iceborne built a city under the glacier. And in the ice walls, frozen in place like specimens in glass, were hundreds of them. The Iceborne, an entire population, preserved in the ancient glacier, waiting to wake up." "We fell into their nest," Kowalski said, "their hibernation chamber." As our lights played across the frozen forms, I saw movement. Eyes opening, the blue glow spreading. They were waking up, all of them, hundreds of Iceborne, roused by our body heat, our presence, our intrusion into their frozen city. "Run," I whispered. The ice walls began to crack. "Run!" Webb screamed. We ran through the glacial city, 5 rangers surrounded by an army of awakening cold. Behind us, the sound of ice shattering as ancient beings freed themselves from 10,000-year prisons. And ahead, only more darkness, more cold, more ice. We'd fallen from a bad situation into a nightmare. And I was starting to think that Coldwater was right. We never should have come here. Never should have disturbed the melting glaciers. Never should have opened the prisons that climate change was breaking apart. Because some things are buried for a reason, and some cold is meant to stay frozen forever. We ran through tunnels of ice while an army of the ancient dead woke up around us. The underground city was massive. Kilometers of carved passages, chambers, structures that predated human civilization as we knew it. And in every wall, frozen in the glacial ice, the Iceborne slept. Until we woke them up. Our body heat, our movement, our panic, it all radiated warmth into the frozen world. And that warmth, minimal as it was enough. Eyes opened in the walls. Blue glows appeared. Ice, cracked and shattered as beings that had been dormant for 10,000 years, freed themselves from their prisons. "How many are there?" Kim gasped, running beside me. "Hundreds," Webb replied. "Maybe thousands. This was a whole civilization." We burst into a large chamber, some kind of central plaza in the buried city. The ceiling was maybe 100 feet above us, supported by massive ice pillars carved with those geometric patterns. In the center was a structure that looked like an altar or monument, made of ice so clear it was almost invisible. And surrounding us, on all sides, the Iceborne emerged from the walls. They moved slowly at first, like they were remembering how to walk after millennia of stillness. Their translucent bodies glowed faintly blue. Through their ice-clear skin I could see their organs. Hearts frozen solid, lungs filled with ice crystals, brains encased in frost. Dead by any normal definition, but moving, aware, hunting. "There's too many," Rivera said, his voice breaking. "We can't fight this many." "We don't fight," Kowalski replied. "We find a way out. There has to be an exit. This city wouldn't have been built without egress points." But the Iceborne were closing in. A circle of ancient predators converging on 5 warm-blooded humans who had invaded their frozen sanctuary. The pendant. I pulled out Coldwater's firebone charm. It was warm, impossibly warm for something that had been in my pocket in sub-zero temperatures. He said it holds heat that can't be stolen. Maybe it can do more than that. I held it up. The carved bone began to glow, not blue like the Iceborne, but orange-red. Heat radiated from it, not fire exactly, but warmth so intense it hurt to hold. The air around the pendant shimmered. The nearest Iceborne recoiled. Not in pain. They probably didn't feel pain, but in aversion, like a vampire confronted with a cross. The ancient heat in the bone was anathema to them. "It's working," Kim said. "They're backing away." "Form up on Chen," Webb ordered. "Tight formation. We move as one." We clustered together, me in the center holding the pendant high. The Iceborne backed away as we moved, creating a bubble of safety around us. Not a large bubble, maybe 10 feet radius, but enough. We started walking toward what looked like a tunnel exit on the far side of the chamber. The Iceborne followed, staying just outside the pendant's radius of heat, their frozen eyes tracking our every move. "Why aren't they giving up?" Rivera asked. "Why keep following us?" "Because they're hungry," I said. 10,000 years of dormancy. Now they're awake and all they know is that warm-blooded things exist, where food, energy, heat they can steal and make their own. We reached the tunnel and entered. It sloped upward, a good sign. We were ascending, hopefully toward the surface. Behind us, the army of Iceborne followed like a pale blue tide. "How long can you hold that thing?" Kowalski asked me. "I don't know. It's getting hotter, starting to burn my hand." The pendant was like holding a glowing coal now. The bone itself should have been burning away, but it wasn't. Ancient magic or advanced technology, either way, it was beyond my understanding. The tunnel branched, left or right. No way to know which led out. "Left," Webb decided. "Move." We went left. The tunnel narrowed, forcing us into single file. The Iceborne couldn't follow as easily. Their 7-foot frames had to compress to fit. It bought us some distance, but the pendant was getting too hot. I could smell my glove burning. My hand was blistering underneath. "I can't hold it much longer," I yelled. "Give it to me." Kim reached for it. Our hands touched as we transferred the pendant. Her glove caught fire instantly from the heat. She yelped but kept hold of it, raising it high. The tunnel opened into another chamber. This one was different, not carved by the Iceborne. This was natural, a volcanic cave system intersecting with the glacial tunnels, and in the center of the chamber a crack in the floor releasing steam. Geothermal heat, volcanic vents. Exactly what Coldwater had described. "That's it," I said. "That's our salvation. Volcanic heat, they can't tolerate it." We ran for the vent. The Iceborne surged forward, trying to cut us off before we reached the safety of the geothermal area. Rivera was in the back of our group. One of the Iceborne got close enough to touch his leg. The flash freeze spread instantly. Rivera fell, his lower body solid ice, his torso still flesh. "Help me!" he screamed. "Don't leave me!" Kowalski and I grabbed his arms, dragging him toward the steam vent. But the Iceborne were on him. 5 of them, converging like wolves on wounded prey. Their hands touched his arms, his chest, his head. "Let him go!" Kowalski yelled at me. "Or they'll get you too!" I released Rivera's arm. Kowalski did the same. Rivera's scream, as he flash froze completely, was a sound I'll hear until I die. His eyes stayed open, locked on us, pleading, terrified, aware. And then the ice spread to his brain, and even the eyes stopped moving. 4 of us left. We reached the geothermal vent and huddled around the rising steam. The heat was incredible, hot enough to burn if we got too close, but radiating warmth in a wide circle. The Iceborne stopped at the edge of the heat radius. They stood in a perfect circle around us, dozens of them, their frozen blue eyes watching, waiting, but not approaching. "We're safe," Kim said, clutching the now cooling pendant. "The volcanic heat protects us." "For now," Webb replied. "But we can't stay here forever. We have no food, limited water, and if we leave this vent, we're dead." "Then we figure out how to kill them," Kowalski said. "We have weapons, explosives, and now we know their weakness. Extreme heat. We find a way to weaponize that." I was studying the iceborne's formation around us. They weren't random. They were organized, coordinated, and they were doing something, their hands raised, their bodies swaying slightly. "What are they doing?" I asked. The temperature started dropping, fast. The steam from the vent decreased, the heat radius shrank. "They're manipulating the temperature," Webb realized. "They're trying to freeze the geothermal vent, cut off our heat source." "Can they do that?" Kim asked. "They're doing it," I replied. The steam was noticeably less now. The warmth radiating from the vent was weakening. "If they shut this down, we freeze," Kowalski said. "Or we run and they catch us. Either way, we're dead." "Unless we change the game," I said. I was looking at the iceborne's formation, their coordination, their collective effort to freeze the vent. They're working together, like a hive mind, or a single organism spread across multiple bodies. "So?" Webb asked. "So maybe we don't need to kill all of them. Maybe we just need to disrupt their coordination. Scatter them. Make them individuals instead of a collective." "How?" Kowalski demanded. I looked at the pendant in Kim's hand, then at the explosives in Kowalski's pack, then at the geothermal vent beneath us. "We blow the vent," I said. "Force a catastrophic release. Turn this whole chamber into a steam bomb. The heat and concussion should scatter them, disrupt their collective focus. Then we run while they're disorganized." "That could bring down the entire tunnel system," Webb said. "We could be buried alive." "We're already buried alive," I replied. "The question is whether we die slowly freezing or quickly trying to escape." Kim was looking at the shrinking heat radius, at the iceborne getting closer as the warmth decreased. "I vote for trying to escape. What do we need to do?" Kowalski pulled out C4 charges. "We place these around the vent opening, set a short timer, then we run like hell through whichever tunnel looks most stable. The explosion should create enough heat and pressure to blast through the ice, hopefully creating a path to the surface." "And if it doesn't?" Webb asked. "Then we die in a warm explosion instead of freezing slowly," Kowalski replied. "I know which I prefer." We placed the charges while the iceborne continued their assault on our heat source. The steam was down to a trickle now, the temperature dropping degree by degree. We could see our breath again, feel the cold reaching through our gear. "Timer set to 60 seconds, Kowalski announced. "When it goes off, this whole area becomes an oven. We need to be at least 50 meters away or we'll cook." "Which tunnel?" Kim asked, looking at the 3 exits from the chamber. "That one," I pointed to the one that seemed to slope upward most steeply, toward the surface. 60 seconds starting now." Kowalski triggered the timer. We ran. Behind us, the iceborne realized what we'd done. They surged forward, abandoning their assault on the vent, reaching for us as we sprinted for the tunnel. One of them caught Kim. Its hand closed around her ankle. She fell hard, sliding on the ice. "Kim!" Webb turned back. "Go!" Kim yelled. "Don't stop! The ice spread up her leg. Kim did something I'll never forget. She pulled a knife from her belt and drove it into her own thigh, above the spreading ice, trying to sever the limb before the freeze reached her core. But ice doesn't care about knives. The freeze spread past her desperate amputation attempt, up her torso, across her chest, to her head. Her eyes stayed on us, pleading, terrified, for one last second. Then she was gone. Another statue in the frozen city. 3 of us left. Chen, Webb, Kowalski. We reached the tunnel entrance just as the timer hit 5 seconds. The explosion was like the birth of a sun. The C4 detonated, rupturing the geothermal vent, releasing pressure that had been building for thousands of years. Superheated steam exploded through the chamber at temperatures exceeding 300 degrees Fahrenheit. The iceborne didn't have time to react. The heat flash melted them instantly. Dozens of ancient beings surviving 10,000 years of dormancy, destroyed in seconds by volcanic fury. The concussion wave hit us, throwing us forward into the tunnel. The ice ceiling cracked, shattered, collapsed behind us, sealing the chamber in 1,000 tons of falling glacier. We tumbled, sliding, bouncing off walls, unable to control our descent or ascent. Couldn't even tell which direction we were moving. Just falling through darkness while the world came apart around us. And then, light. Actual light. Not ice glow. Not tactical lights. Sunlight. We burst out of a crack in the glacier surface, ejected by the force of the explosion below, landing in deep snow under the gray Alaskan sky. Dawn had broken. We'd survived the night. 3 Rangers out of 12. 9 frozen. 9 dead. 9 people turned to living statues trapped in ice forever, aware but immobile, their last moments stretched into eternity. "Is it over?" Webb gasped. "Are they gone?" I looked back at the glacier. The explosion had created a massive caldera, a sunken area where the geothermal eruption had melted through layers of ice. Steam rose from the crater, and deep in that steam I saw movement. Blue glows. Shapes forming. "No," I said quietly. "We just pissed them off, and there's more of them, many more. The glacier is still melting, climate change is still happening, more vents will open, more iceborne will wake up. Then what do we do?" Kowalski asked. "We warn people," I replied. "We tell the truth, and we hope someone listens before the entire glacier melts and releases all of them." But even as I said it, I knew it was hopeless. Who would believe us? 3 traumatized rangers telling stories about ice monsters and prehistoric civilizations. They'd call it hypothermia-induced delusion, climate exposure, psychological break, and the iceborne would keep waking up, 1 glacier at a time, 1 warm winter at a time, until the world remembered what it had forgotten, that we weren't the first civilization on this planet, and we might not be the last. We emerged from the glacier crater into dawn light, 3 Rangers out of 12, covered in frost and trauma. The Park Service station was visible in the distance, maybe 3 kilometers across the snow. Salvation, or at least the illusion of it. "We need to move," Webb said, her voice hoarse from screaming and cold. "Get to communications, call for extraction, warn command about what's down there." "And tell them what?" Kowalski asked. "That prehistoric ice monsters killed 9 of our team? That climate change is releasing an ancient civilization? They'll institutionalize us." "Then we tell them enough," I said. "Biological hazard. Unknown pathogen in the melted glacier ice. Extreme danger. Recommend immediate quarantine of the area." "That might work," Webb agreed. "Biological threats they understand. It gets the area cordoned off, at least temporarily." We started walking toward the Park Service station. Every step was agony. We'd been awake for over 30 hours, running on adrenaline and fear. Our Arctic gear was damaged, our hands frostbitten, our core temperatures dangerously low despite the fire-bone pendant that had saved us. The pendant. I still had it, tucked in my jacket. It was cool now, dormant, but I could feel a faint warmth that had nothing to do with temperature. Ancient power, elder wisdom. The Athabascan people had survived alongside the iceborne for 10,000 years because they knew. They remembered, and they prepared. We'd ignored their warnings. 9 people had died because of it. Behind us, the glacier groaned. A sound like the earth itself was in pain. We turned to look. The crater from our explosion was expanding. The geothermal heat we'd released was melting the surrounding ice at an accelerated rate. What had been a small caldera was now a growing lake of meltwater. And rising from that water, dozens of iceborne. "They're not stopping," Kowalski said. "We killed maybe 30 of them in the explosion, but there are more, hundreds more." The whole glacier is their tomb, Webb realized. Every layer of ice holds more of them. As it melts, they wake up, and climate change is melting this glacier at record rates. "Then they'll keep coming," I said. "One warm season at a time. One melting glacier at a time. Until all of them are free." We kept moving toward the station, but the iceborne were following. Slower than before. Daylight seemed to weaken them slightly, or maybe the explosive heat had damaged them, but still pursuing. Still hunting. "We're not going to make it," Kowalski said, checking his remaining ammunition. "I've got maybe 20 rounds left. Webb, 15. Chen, empty. Used everything in the glacier. So, combined, we have 35 bullets against maybe 50 iceborne. The math doesn't work." Webb stopped walking, turned to face us. "Then we change the math. You two keep going. Get to the station. Call for help. I'll buy you time." "Like hell," I said. "We don't abandon—" "You're not abandoning me," Webb interrupted. "I'm making a choice. I'm the commanding officer. This is my call. You two have a chance to reach the station if someone slows them down. So that's what I'm doing." "Sarah," Kowalski said quietly, "you don't have to do this." "Yes, I do." Webb pulled out her remaining magazines. "Besides, someone needs to make sure those things don't follow you all the way to civilization, and I've always wanted to go out like a hero." She smiled, tired, terrified, but determined. "Tell my family I died in combat, not the truth. They don't need to know about this." "We'll tell them," I promised. Webb nodded, turned back toward the advancing iceborne, raised her rifle. "Now go." "That's an order." Kowalski and I ran. Behind us, Webb opened fire. Single shots, precise, aimed at the iceborne's heads. Her fire discipline was perfect. Every bullet counted, every shot deliberate, buying us seconds, minutes, time measured in the gaps between gunshots. Then the shots stopped. I looked back, saw Webb surrounded, saw the iceborne closing in, saw her raise the firebone pendant I'd given her before we separated. I'd pressed it into her hand, hoping it would protect her. It blazed orange-red. The iceborne recoiled. Webb stood in a circle of heat, holding them at bay with ancient magic while Kowalski and I sprinted for the station. "Keep running," Kowalski yelled at me. "Don't look back." But I couldn't help it. I looked back one last time, saw the pendant's glow fading as Webb's strength failed, saw the iceborne surge forward, saw Webb disappear into a mass of translucent bodies and frozen blue eyes. 10 Rangers dead, 2 survivors. We reached the Park Service station at 07:45 hours. Kicked open the door, found the emergency radio. Kowalski grabbed it with shaking hands. "Mayday, Mayday, this is Army Ranger Team 7 requesting immediate evacuation. We have extreme casualties and a biological hazard situation. Requesting military quarantine of Denali Glacier area. Over." Static, then a voice. "Ranger Team 7, this is Fort Richardson Command. Confirm your situation. You were reported overdue this morning." "What happened?" Kowalski and I looked at each other. How do you explain the truth when the truth is impossible? "Command, we encountered a contaminant in the melted glacier ice. Unknown biological agent. Extremely hostile. We've lost 10 personnel. Request immediate air evacuation and hazmat containment. Ranger 7, are you saying your team was exposed to a biological weapon? Negative, Command. This is naturally occurring, but extremely dangerous. The glacier melt is releasing something that shouldn't be released. We need this area locked down, now. Copy that. Air evac is inbound. ETA 20 minutes. Can you hold position? I looked out the window. The iceborne were still coming. Slower now. The daylight definitely affected them, but persistent, maybe 30 of them spreading out, surrounding the station. We'll hold, Kowalski said into the radio, but tell that bird to hurry. The next 20 minutes were the longest of my life. We barricaded the doors, broke out the station's emergency fuel and built fires in every fireplace, every stove, every heat source we could find. Created a bubble of warmth that the iceborne couldn't penetrate. They surrounded the building, pressed against the windows, their frozen eyes staring in, their breath, if you could call it breath, creating frost patterns on the glass. And they whispered, not with voices, with cold, with the absence of heat, directly into our minds. Join us, stop fighting. The warmth is fleeting, the cold is eternal. You cannot win. You can only delay. Give up. Sleep. Freeze. Become. Don't listen, I told Kowalski. Focus on the heat. Focus on staying warm. They're trying to get in our heads like they did with Torres. I know, Kowalski replied. But his eyes were glazed. He was swaying slightly. But Chen, don't you think it would be easier to just stop, to rest? I'm so tired. Kowalski! I grabbed his shoulders, shook him. Stay with me, that's not you thinking, that's them. He blinked, focused. Right, sorry. It's just... I can feel them in my thoughts, promising peace, promising rest. They're promising death, I said. Stay strong, helicopter's almost here. At 0805, we heard rotors, the blessed sound of salvation. Through the window, I saw the Black Hawk approaching, coming in fast. The iceborne scattered, not fleeing, repositioning. Some dove back into the snow, disappearing from sight. Others moved to the tree line, waiting, watching. The helicopter landed 50 meters from the station. The pilot's voice came over the radio. Ranger Team 7, this is your evac. We have visual on your position. Advise, we're seeing some kind of atmospheric distortion around your location. Heavy fog or mist. Can you make it to the bird? Affirmative, I replied. Moving now. Kowalski and I grabbed what gear we could carry and kicked open the door. The cold hit us like a wall. The iceborne emerged from hiding, converging on our position and the helicopter. Run! Kowalski yelled. We sprinted across the snow. Behind us, the iceborne glided forward, moving fast now that we'd left the safety of the heated building. The helicopter crew chief was in the door, waving us in. Move! 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 We were 20 meters away when an iceborne erupted from the snow directly in front of Kowalski. He collided with it at full speed. Both went down in a tangle. Kowalski! I skidded to a stop. He was fighting it, punching the creature's translucent body, trying to break free. But its hand was on his chest. Ice was spreading, fast. Go! Kowalski yelled at me. Get on that bird. Tell the truth. Warn people. I'm not leaving you. You have to. He was freezing, his words slurring as his jaw stiffened. Someone has to warn them. Glaciers, melting, everywhere. Tell them what's coming. I ran for the helicopter, every instinct screaming at me to help Kowalski. But he was right. Someone had to survive. Someone had to tell the truth. I dove into the helicopter. The crew chief pulled me in. Where's your teammate? Dead! Go now! The pilot didn't wait for clarification. The Black Hawk lifted off, banking hard away from the station. Through the open door, I saw Kowalski frozen in the snow, surrounded by Iceborne. Saw them converging on the building. Saw more of them emerging from the glacier. We flew over the caldera, over the melting ice, and I saw what had been hidden beneath the glacier. Thousands of them. An entire civilization preserved in ice, waking up as climate change undid 10,000 years of frozen imprisonment. "What the hell are those things?" the pilot asked, seeing the blue glows spreading across the glacier. "The past," I said quietly. "The past coming back because we made the world too warm. Because we melted the prisons we didn't even know existed." The debriefing at Fort Richardson was exactly what I expected. They didn't believe me. Couldn't believe me. Ice monsters, prehistoric civilizations, telepathic cold? It was impossible. The official report classified the incident as a training accident compounded by extreme weather and possible natural gas exposure causing hallucinations. 10 Rangers dead. 1 survivor. Kowalski had been found frozen, but was declared dead from hypothermia. I was the only one who made it out. The Denali Glacier area was declared off-limits. Geological instability, they said. Risk of further ice calving events. Military and Park Service personnel were ordered to stay away. But I know the real reason, because the ice is still melting. The Iceborne are still waking up, and the military doesn't know how to stop them. I was medically discharged 3 months later. PTSD, severe trauma, unsuitable for further service. They gave me a disability pension and sent me home. But I can't go home, because home is warmer than it used to be. Every winter is shorter. Every spring starts earlier. Every glacier melts a little faster. And the Iceborne are waking up all over the world. There have been reports, hushed up, classified. But I have contacts who share information. Strange deaths in Greenland. Entire research stations found frozen in the Arctic. Climbers on Himalayan peaks reporting blue glows in the ice. The world is warming. The glaciers are melting. And something ancient is being released. I tried to warn people, went to the media, called scientists, posted online. But I'm just one traumatized veteran with an impossible story. They call me delusional, a climate change conspiracy theorist, someone who cracked under pressure. Only the Athabascan people believe me. Joseph Coldwater found me 6 months after Denali, brought me another firebone pendant, told me that other tribes are preparing. The Inuit in the north, the Sherpa in the Himalayas. Indigenous peoples who live near glaciers, they all have stories about the Iceborne. They all remember, and they all know what's coming. The old compact is breaking, Coldwater told me. For 10,000 years, the cold kept them sealed, kept them sleeping. We lived on the surface, they slept in the ice, and the world stayed balanced. But now the ice is dying, and they're coming back. How many? I asked. All of them. Every glacier on Earth holds them. Antarctica, Greenland, the Himalayas, the Alps, the Andes. Everywhere ice has existed since the last ice age. And as that ice melts, they wake. Can they be stopped? Coldwater smiled sadly. You already know the answer. You saw what it took to kill even a few of them. And there are millions of them sleeping in the ice, waiting. So what do we do? You warn people. You tell them the truth. You make them understand that climate change isn't just about rising seas and heat waves. It's about what we're releasing, what we're waking up. The ice wasn't just frozen water. It was a cage, and we're breaking it open. I'm telling you this because you need to know. Because every warm winter, Every melting glacier, every degree of warming, it's not just destroying ecosystems and flooding coastlines. It's releasing something we buried, something we forgot, something that remembers us as prey. The iceborne are real. They're waking up, and they're hungry for the warmth that we carry in our blood. 10 Rangers went into Denali. 2 came out. 11 more people froze to death. Not from hypothermia, but from being turned into living ice. Conscious. Aware, trapped forever. The military covered it up, called it an accident. But it wasn't an accident. It was a warning, a preview of what's coming as the world gets warmer and the glaciers disappear. So, when you see news reports about melting ice, when you read about glaciers retreating, when you hear scientists warning about climate change, remember this: we're not just losing ice. We're releasing what was buried in it. And some things were buried for a reason. The iceborne are patient. They waited 10,000 years. They can wait a little longer, but not much longer. Because every summer, more ice melts, and every winter, fewer glaciers freeze solid. The world is getting warmer, and they're getting closer to freedom. I still have Coldwater's firebone pendant. I wear it every day. It's warm against my chest, a reminder that some heat can't be stolen, some light can't be frozen, some life resists the cold, but I also know that it's not enough. One pendant, one person, one warning voice in a world that doesn't want to listen. The ice is melting. The iceborne are waking, and we did this. Our cars, our factories, our refusal to change. We heated the world and melted the prisons, and now we're going to meet what we released.